Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so I had everything muted, and now everything's turned on, which means it's time to start our Shabbat worship. So we're using the Blue Prayer Book tonight, and I found this reading on page 2. If everyone could turn to page 2. And everyone remember that our prayer book goes from right to left. I thought it was especially appropriate for our social action Shabbat service. We are called unto life, destiny uncertain, yet we offer thanks for what we know, for health and healing, for labor and repose, for renewal of beauty in earth and sky, for that blend of human holy which inspires compassion, for hope eternal, promising light. Together, for life, for health, for hope, for beautiful, bountiful blessing, all praise to the source of being. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekor nefesh kol chai. And now we continue on page 646, and go to the opposite side of the prayer book, with our opening song. It's called Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah. It's at the bottom of 646. So anyone remember what a mitzvah is? What's mitzvah? A good deed. It's really actually a commandment, but we always translate it as a good deed. So this prayer is Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah, which means one good deed leads to another. And then it says Avera Goreret Avera. One sin, one bad thing leads to another, but then it goes back to, but to be righteous is good. So it's kind of like, what starts in motion stays in motion? Is that what that is? So start good, stay good. If you start like this, it's harder to get to the good spot. So let's sing together. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah, Avera goreret avera. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah, goreret mitzvah, lai 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 lai. Lihiyot tzadik, zetov, zetov. Lihiyot tzadik, zetov mehod. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah, Avera goreret avera. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah, goreret mitzvah, lai 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 lai. And now we're jumping back to page 120, and we invite Marcy Racklin, co-chair of Social Action Committee, to come lead us in the candles and kiddush.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Okay. Of course, I have to do this. I do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Then I do this, so there's no consequences.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu l'hadlak ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. 122.
No.
You don't have to.
Oh, okay.
Your other page. Hang on.
Oh,
There you go.
no, that's 5. I have to do it.
No,
we did it
here's
already.
5. Yeah, we're up to 5.
Wow. The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day, God finished their work, the work that God had been doing. And God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all work of creation that God had done. Okay.
And we join together in the Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom tehillah lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodeshecha, ve'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. The Chaim? Perfect, Marcy.
Okay, I'm done.
Yes, you're done. You're done. All right. See, it wasn't so scary. So we're going to continue now. Please turn to page 264. And when you're ready, please rise. Baruch hu et Adonai ha'mevorach. Baruch hu et Adonai ha'mevorach. Baruch Adonai ha'mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai ha'mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch hu et Adonai ha'mevorach. Baruch hu et Adonai ha'mevorach. We continue on page 265, and we invite Ellen Goldberg to lead us, and we remain standing.
Adonai, your majesty, is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you, and endow our fleeting days with abiding work. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamarav Aravim. Turn to page 266, please. In each age, we receive and transmit Torah. At each moment, we are addressed by the world.
Everyone, in each age, challenged by our ancient teaching. At each moment, we stand face to face with truth.
In each age, we add our wisdom to that which has gone before. At each moment, the knowing heart is filled with wonder.
In each age, the children of Torah become its builders and seek to set the world firm on a foundation of truth.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Stay for the song, Ellen. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Mahuto Le'olam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Mahuto Le'olam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Please be seated. We continue on page 268. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובמלאכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני Adonai Elohechem. We continue on page 269. Invite Gail Cass to lead us.
We read responsively. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet that oneness eludes our grasp, as imperfection and evil abound.
Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. There is evil enough to break the heart,
And there is good enough to exalt the soul.
When will redemption come?
When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learn God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate his power that makes for freedom.
We continue on page 270. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders?
Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried. Adonai will reign forever and ever.
Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
And now we go to the top of 270 and sing Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha ba'edim Adonai, Mi Chamocha ne'zar ba'kodesh, Mi Chamocha ba'edim Adonai, Mi Chamocha ne'zar ba'kodesh. Malchut Nechara Uvanecha, Ukeyayam Lifnei Moshe Miriam, Ve'eni Hanu Ve'hameru, Ve'eni Hanu Ve'hameru, Adonai, Yimloch Ne'olam Va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'zar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'zar b'kodesh. Nora Osei Nora Adonai, Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed. Thank you, Gail. We continue on page 271 and invite up Maddie Cal to lead us.
Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Haparei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Amo Israel, V'al Yerushalayim. Please turn the page. The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
And together we sing V'shamru. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam b'Ridolam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam b'Ridolam. Ve'ni uveim b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam b'Ridolam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam b'Ridolam. U'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam b'Ridolam. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you.
We're going to continue on page 273 with our Amidah prayer. And if you could please rise. And Amidah literally means the standing prayer. And we go on all the way through page 276. But we start on 273. Adonai sabatai tifta u'viha githilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor, HaNorah, Eliyod, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zoher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, V'bigula Livnei V'neihem, L'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshe Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Izrat Sarah. I want to warn you now that it's summer. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Michei Kol Atah, Rab the Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chayim Nechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Nerofei Chodim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato, Nishenei Hafar, Micha Mochabal Givurot, Umidom Melech, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neman Hatan HaChayot HaKol, Atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol, Atah Kadosh, Shimcha Kadosh, Ukdoshim B'chol Yom Yahalu Chasela, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ayel HaKadosh. Please be seated. So in Israel, like Florida, there's two seasons. Okay, there's winter and summer. Although Israel also talks about spring, Aviv. Technically, it's two seasons because Hebrew and Judaism and Israel, we started out really as an agrarian people, where we were dependent on the rain and dependent on the sun to have enough crops, and then for whether we were farmers or had livestock. So much of our prayers are tied into the seasons, and this is one of those prayers that shifts from winter to summer after Passover. I will tell you an interesting thing. Basically, it doesn't rain in Israel all summer. It really does. It does not rain in Israel all summer. And most of us, when we're 16 or whatever, we go to Israel, and it's usually in the summer, and I didn't think anything of it. But when I went to study in Israel for a full year, and I experienced the full cycle of the Israeli weather calendar, immediately, literally, on Sukkot, it rained, which is exactly what's supposed to happen in the cycle, and it started raining, and then it didn't stop raining. But anyway, so it was really interesting. If you could ever spend a year in Israel, and I hope you can someday, you will experience the prayer, the way we change the seasons, and notice what we do with the prayers. So we continue reading together in English on page 278. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfills its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And then we continue on page 281 in the top left-hand corner, responsively. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks.
For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we will praise.
For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
Then I jump to the bottom. For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulcha na'eh lahodot. And on page 282, we sing together our song of peace. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarich et Amcha Yisrael. V'chonetu v'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. We pray silently. Oseh shalom b'brama, u'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael, v'hivru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu 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 ve'achol Yisrael. So we've really been jumping around the prayer book tonight, and you're going to do another jump right now to page 570. So this is the time of year between Passover and Shavuot, okay? And this is when we do the counting of the Omer. The Omer is a measure because, like I was talking about, the Israelites being agrarian people. So we're on 570, and the Omer is a measure of barley. So this particular season was about the barley harvest. I really like barley. Anyway, so this is the Omer counter. This is the third Omer counter that we've had at the temple since I came here in the last 21 years. And this is on loan from Rabbi Prezand. There was another one we can't find, and another one broke. So I will do the blessing. Here we go. Baruch, you can read with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom hachamisha achsar yom shehem shenei shavuot yom echad la'omer. Today is 15 days, which is 2 weeks and 1 day of the Omer. So it's only been 15 days since Passover, okay? So that's when which seems like a distant memory. And then it's in the right spot. If you come later on, I put it in the right spot. So I learned this from Rabbi Prezand. She said, you know, the Omer talks about counting our days, but sometimes instead of counting our days, we should make our days count. And she is so wise. So we continue now. You're going to jump back to page 364, and it is our Torah service, and I ask you to please rise. Sushaharim Roshechem V'chinasu Pithei Olam V'yavo Melech HaKavod Melech HaKavod Adonai Tzvaot U'Melech HaKavod Sela U'Melech HaKavod Sela Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adoninu Kadosh Shemo Lecha Adonai HaGevura Lecha Gevura Bativeret B'chaditzach B'hahod Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Lecha Adonai Amalacha V'minasi Lechol Rosh Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Omer Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Omer Al HaTorah Ve'al HaAvodah Ve'al Gemilut Chasadim Al HaTorah Ve'al HaAvodah Ve'al Gemilut Chasadim Ve'ha'er Einenu B'Toratecha V'da'abek Lebeinu B'mitzvotecha Ve'yachid Levaveinu Le'ahava U'yirah Et Shemecha. So at this time in our service, if you want to follow along with the Torah reading, you can find it on page 841. We're in a double portion of Tazria Metzora. Nobody really likes this portion, so it's a good thing that Heide will be speaking to us rather than studying this portion too much. But there's a lot to be gleaned from this portion. Now, probably most of the congregation will also come up because we're honoring you with the Torah blessing if you were in the Social Action Committee. So now that I had you turn to that page, if you're going to come up and help us lead the Torah blessing, please come on up now. Oh, only a third. Okay. Okay. Right. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So, begin.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Hamim. V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Okay, so this is about how we used to treat medically the people with leprosy in the camp where we were, and they put a whole bunch of herbal remedies on top of the leprosy, and one of the things that they used was hyssop, and that's za'atar, the spice. So I'm sure they ate it separately, not having to do with the leprosy, but I always thought that was interesting. Here we go. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, zot tieh Torah hamtzorah, vayom Torato, uva el hakohen, vayetze hakohen el mihut lamachane, ra hakohen, v'nei nir panega hamtzorah, min hatzarua, tziva hakohen, ולקח למטהר שתי סיפורים חיות תורות בית ארץ ושני תולעת ואזוב. ברוך אתה אדוני
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, notein haTorah.
Amen. All right, on behalf of the synagogue, we thank the Social Action Committee for all the great things that you do and for the amazing mitzvah day that you've all been working so hard in planning. You had a meeting this past Thursday, right? Looking good? Yesterday? Yesterday was Thursday.
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
2 days ago? Well, I didn't go, but I heard it was great. Okay, and thank you and for all you do. And people know our congregation as a congregation that tries to make the world a better place. Please rise.
וזאת התורה אשר שמתי לפני בני ישראל על אדוני מיד משה. וזאת התורה אשר שמתי לפני בני ישראל אביר אדוני מיד משה. לי 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 לי
Okay, when you come in here, I'm gonna go over here. There you go. Thank you.
Changed your mind.
Well, I just needed to get my stuff. At this time, we think about those in our congregation who need our prayers of healing. Not only those who are ill, but all of their caregivers and their doctors and all the people who try to make all of us feel better. We are especially praying for Rabbi Robert Orak, Nancy Baskin, Martha Brandwein, Norma Cohn, Miriam Solons, Eileen High, Nancy Keller Coffey, Marcy Seligman Waite, Robert Summers, Louis Corallo, Jessica Knight, Niles Chopper, Alice Chopper, Judith Landau, Pam Friedman, Eric Blumenfeld, If there are any other names that you would like to say, please do so now. Stanley.
Barry Gilchrist.
Sandra Goldberg.
Are there any other names? May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. And may the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And together we say, Amen. Misha Behirach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Neimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Behirach Imotenu, Mikor HaBracha Dehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing, with Refuah Shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Page 374, we return the Torah to the Ark. It's Chaim Lamachazikimo, V'Torah Techecha, Me'ushar, Zerachecha, Lechinu, B'chol Netivotecha, Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. So please be seated. So Ellen Goldberg is going to introduce our speaker, and Heide is getting over a little bit of an illness, so she may feel tired, and she may move to this seat, and she may not, but we're all ready in case she decides to do so. But Ellen, you go ahead and introduce her.
Heide Estes is professor of English at Monmouth University, where she teaches environmental studies and medieval literature. She has published several books and numerous articles on environmental issues and on representations of Jews in early medieval English literature. She co-founded and co-edits the scholarly journal Medieval Ecocriticisms, right? Okay, good. In addition, she volunteers with environmental groups and lectures on sustainability and how to become a climate activist. She is also a member of MRT. Please welcome Heide Estes.
And a newlywed.
Just going to start in the chair. I apologize.
Make sure you're given a music stand for your papers.
That's all right. Thanks.
You can go as far as you want.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Okay, thanks. Whoa.
I'm going to adjust it for you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, y'all, for being here. And thanks for having me here.
We're so glad you're
And
here.
I'm delighted to have the chance to talk to you. Flooding and fires, tornadoes and ticks, extreme heat and violent storms, COVID and crop failures, environmental refugees. It sounds like a Pesach list of plagues. Climate change causes and exacerbates humanitarian crises around the world. The poorest communities in the United States and the world are the ones most dramatically affected by environmental disasters. I hope to persuade you today that as Jews committed to social justice, we are morally bound to act. I don't, I hope, have to convince you that climate crisis is real and is in fact caused by human actions. In the 21st century, climate change is already causing catastrophic effects to people and animals around the world. Extreme heat, catastrophic storms, and drought have led directly to refugee crises in India and Louisiana, Central America and the Philippines, Venice and Jakarta. The United Nations estimates that more than 21 million people have been affected every year since 2008, and they forecast that these numbers will soar in coming decades. You might not know that the United States is responsible for fully a quarter of greenhouse gas emissions since the start of industrialization. The countries that now belong to the European Union have twice as many inhabitants, but lower cumulative emissions, because they've taken decisive action in recent decades to invest in wind and solar power. They've also built efficient and reliable mass transit and made towns and cities safe for pedestrians and cyclists. I hope that in the next few minutes I can convince you not only that each of us should act, but that you have the power and the resources to make a difference. We're all capable of doing something. Some of the things we can do are not that hard. We need to educate ourselves about the developing climate crisis and our own carbon footprints. We need to talk to other people about climate change and its social and environmental impacts. And we need to get involved in our communities. But first, a little more about climate change and its impacts. The philosopher Timothy Morton coined the term hyperobject in a book he published in 2013 to help think about and talk about climate change. It's so huge that it can be simultaneously invisible and completely overwhelming. The arc we are on is serious and we can't go back, but we can make it less worse, less bad. The science is complicated but clear. We're having hotter summers and less cold winters worldwide, and this has already had catastrophic effects, and as temperatures rise further, the effects are going to keep compounding. The news doesn't always do a great job of reporting on climate change and future risks, though they're getting better. I love that you're nodding. It's so nice to have the feedback. Thank you. Part of this is because scientists don't like to talk about things that they aren't sure about, so predicting the future. But what they are sure of is how much global temperatures already have increased in the past 150 years, namely 1 degree Celsius or 1.7 degrees in Fahrenheit. In the past 40 years, the rate that temperature is going up has doubled over the 100 years before that. The other thing scientists are sure of is the mechanism for how the Earth is warming up. And I hope this is not completely obvious to all of you already. There's a natural cycle of the sun warming the Earth and heat leaving the atmosphere that's been stable for a long time. But that balance has been disturbed by increasing emissions of carbon dioxide, which is, of course, produced when we burn things: heating oil, gasoline, aviation fuel, natural gas, coal, and even wood. Carbon dioxide is a wiggly little molecule that traps heat in the atmosphere and keeps it from dissipating. It's like a Labrador retriever puppy full of energy. Methane has also increased in the atmosphere, and if carbon dioxide is a puppy, methane is 10 Labrador retriever puppies causing absolute chaos. Methane molecules are way more wiggly than carbon dioxide molecules and slow down heat leaving the atmosphere 25 times as much. The main culprits in increasing methane are beef production, landfills, and extracting and refining fossil fuels. Anaerobic decomposition of food waste in landfills. Natural gas, as the fossil fuel industry renamed methane to convince us that it's a good thing. And all those cow stomachs. Cows were domesticated from wild animals around 10,000 years ago, and that's where some people locate the beginning of human-caused changes to the environment, so the Anthropocene. So 10,000 years ago, there were 0 cows. Now there are 1.5 billion. How can I put this in a way that's safe for sure? Let's just say that methane comes out of both ends of the cow. But recent research indicates that belching is the bigger problem. Methane isn't particularly stable as a molecule, and it falls apart in the atmosphere in about 9 years. But as it degrades, the carbon molecules in methane bind with oxygen in the atmosphere, and it turns into carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide molecules also eventually fall apart, but it takes 300 to 1,000 years. So all the carbon dioxide that we've released into the atmosphere in the past 150 years, even if we stop burning stuff today, will be around for a minimum of 300 more years. So carbon dioxide and methane make heat not leave the Earth's surface and make the air warmer. The 10 warmest years in the history of recording global temperatures have all happened since 2010. And the carbon dioxide that we've already released into the atmosphere will be hanging around for another few hundred years. The only proven method for sequestering carbon is planting things. Catherine counted today and discovered she's planted 72 trees in the last 10 years, 61 of which are still alive. And scientists are also at work making plants grow more roots, bigger roots, thicker roots, to put more carbon back in the soil. But these are time-consuming solutions, and meanwhile, we really do need to work to reduce emissions. So, what's wrong with warmer air? Why is not even 2 degrees worldwide such a problem? In short, melting glaciers, bigger storms, more droughts, higher sea levels. Warmer air absorbs more water when it moves over the ocean and then drops more of it off when it moves over land and gets cooler. Dry places get drier, wet places get wetter. Ice is melting in the Rockies, in the Alps, in the Himalayas, in the Andes, on Greenland, and on the polar ice caps, even on top of Mount Everest, glaciers are melting. And eventually all that water ends up in the oceans. And meanwhile, the ocean is getting warmer, and water, as it warms up, expands. So that makes sea levels even higher and more flooding. And we know what happened with Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey and New York 10 years ago. Last year, also more than 7 million people in Bangladesh were affected by floods. Myanmar has the world's highest number of weather-related deaths, followed by several Central American and Caribbean nations. Tuvalu, the Marshall Islands, and the Maldives are at risk of disappearing completely. I should comment also briefly on the effects of environmental degradation, air pollution filling the oceans with plastic, paving huge areas for roads and parking lots, factories that leak toxic chemicals, located overwhelmingly in poor and black neighborhoods, nuclear bomb tests that decimated families to cancer, fracking that poisons the water, again, overwhelmingly in poor communities. You may be aware of redlining, a process in the 20th century where bankers and real estate brokers systematically discriminated against Catholics, Jews, people of color. That supposedly ended with the Fair Housing Act in 1968, but a recent study 2 or 3 years ago found that a lot of discrimination in housing continues. And the environmental justice effects continue as well, with people of color much more likely to live adjacent to highways, factories, and landfills that spew toxic chemicals, and in coastal and other low-lying areas more vulnerable to flooding. Slight aside, animal welfare is also a Jewish value, right? As encoded in the laws of ritual slaughter that are designed to make death instantaneous and limit animal suffering. So in addition to thinking about beef herds and maybe worrying about factory farming, we should also give attention to the increases in extinctions of wild animals, another consequence of pollution and habitat loss, as well as of global warming. Wildfires have drastic effects on animal populations as well as on human life. We've already had 2 wildfires in New Jersey this spring, just this spring. You've probably seen the news videos of the huge wildfires in California in recent years, but you may not have seen videos of wildfires in Russia, Australia, Canada, Bolivia, where some of the biggest forest fires in the past couple of decades have occurred, or in many other places around the world. So climate change is our problem. It's our problem now. It's not somebody else's problem in another place or in the future. It's our problem because here in the United States, we bear the responsibility for a full quarter of historic emissions, and we are still rapidly burning oil and coal and natural, in air quotes, gas. Our per capita emissions are still among the highest in the world. Our nationwide emissions are second only to China, but there are almost 5 times as many people in China. And per person, their carbon emissions are still lower than ours. And we import a lot of the goods that they produce. So if we look at trade differentials in carbon emissions, the picture changes a little bit. So we bear responsibility for our past actions and what we continue to do in the present. In my last few minutes, I want to persuade you that you have the power to do something about it. And I want to suggest that each of us can and must act to help turn the tide. I'm going to propose 4 major avenues for how to take action. Some of them are fairly simple, some are more complicated, some are cheap, some are expensive, some are individual, some collective. There's a handout in the lobby, and if anybody is following along via live stream, the information on the handout is also on a blog post at imagineonecommunity.blogspot.com. That's imagine and then the number one community.blogspot.com. So you don't have to memorize what I'm about to say. So first major thing is educate yourself, right? Learn about climate change and related environmental catastrophes. So when your buddies say things like, oh, electric cars just aren't worth it, they don't have a long enough range, you actually know the facts and you can tell them. Or when they say, oh, the carbon footprint of creating an electric car is so high, it's not worth it. You know the facts and you can say, oh, sorry, but actually over the life of a car, not right. And then talk to people. Catherine Hayhoe is a climate scientist who's been working a great deal on climate communication for a number of years, and she has a great TED Talk and a book about having effective and persuasive conversations with friends and family. That's not enough, though. Lo Diano. Learn about your own carbon footprint so you understand the major contributors, and the most effective way is to reduce it. Transportation, home heating and cooling, and food are some of the major contributors to individual household carbon footprint. We can address those things to some extent with electric cars, better insulation, and reducing food waste. As a nation, we throw away 40% of the food we produce, and most of that's at home. I'm not going to tell you have to go vegan, but you might find it possible to eat somewhat less beef and more chicken, fish, and plants. Everyone eating somewhat lower on the food chain would have more of an impact than a few diehards subsisting on beans and rice. Still not enough. We need to take action in our communities. Business owners, synagogues, and schools can do energy audits, install solar panels, turn down the heat, and probably save money in the process. Still not enough. Lo Dianu. The government needs to take decisive action. We have already made some progress. Our emissions per person peaked at 23.1 tons per person in the 1970s, and thanks to automobile emission standards and some movement toward renewable resources, we're down to an average of 14.9 tons per person per year. But France and Spain have reduced their carbon emissions to under 5 tons per person per year, so a third of ours. There's a wide variation by state in the United States. The average emissions of people in Washington, D.C. are under 4 tons per person. Cities are more environmentally sound because of public transit, apartment buildings with adjoining walls that reduce heating and cooling costs, and smaller homes. New Jersey is number 39 at 11.4 pounds per person. It's hard for most of us to make an impact on the nation as a whole, but we can make a difference locally. We can talk to elected officials, state and local, about making a faster shift from fossil fuels to renewable resources. We can encourage them to invest in public transit, not only to get to the big cities, but to get around our own state. We can encourage our towns to build bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. More than half of car trips are less than 3 miles long, which is a really easy bike ride. I can pretty much bike to my office when you account for parking in the parking lot and navigating the whole shuffle and then walking to my office. I can get to my office faster on my bike. We need a network of safe bike lanes in and between towns, and it also improves our health to get out and move instead of sitting in a car. Building bike lanes also improves pedestrian safety. Finally, think about where your money is and what it's funding. Consider investing your savings and retirement funds in places that don't invest in fossil fuels. I had a funny conversation with my retired advisor who started to tell me that my choice of green funds was hurting my bottom line, and then he looked at the data and realized that it actually was doing really well. So that's it. Learn, talk to people, do something. Keep learning, keep talking, keep doing. Become a climate activist, a little at a time. Together we can do this. Thanks.
Thank you, Heide. Thank you. Awesome.
I'd like to thank Heide for her significant, timely, and terrific sermon on climate change and Jewish values, noting that tomorrow is Earth Day. I want to bring news from the URJ at Reform Action Center, RAC, Reform Action Center, RAC, in Washington, D.C. By the way, our confirmation students traditionally attend the Latakan seminar at RAC, where they engage in social justice activism, as the current class did this past February. Every year, the RAC chooses a national campaign. Last year, the campaign was Every Voice, Every Vote. Many of us participated in this campaign, organized at MRT by the Social Action Committee. We did that, right? Yeah, we wrote postcards. We used all different colored pens to attract attention when people got them in the mail. This year, the RAC campaign takes on climate justice. You might have expected that I would tie this into Heide's sermon. This national project is in partnership with the Climate Action Center and focuses on encouraging the Environmental Protection Agency to adopt rules that will reduce harmful emissions into our atmosphere and waterways, as well as reducing emissions of greenhouse gases. The Social Action Committee will be sponsoring a meeting here to discuss this campaign sometime later this spring. Watch for the notice of this upcoming meeting when looking at the emails from MRT. Let us know if you have any questions, interests, or concerns. Thank you again, Heide, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Ellen. I want you all to know that Ellen rides her bike to synagogue, okay? On most occasions, maybe not tonight, but whenever I come into temple and there's a bike in the lobby, I know that Ellen's here. If there's a bike in the lobby and it's not Ellen, it's David Kahn. So I commend you on that. And one of my children will be moving to Boston, and one of the main reasons he wants to live in Boston is because he lived in Amsterdam, and Amsterdam is such a bikeable city, and so is Boston, and he's looking forward to that. So with young people, there's hope. They have a lot of energy towards making this world a better place. And Heide and Catherine, I am sure that your students who study with you at Monmouth University are inspired to be the generation to make change. And they are very fortunate to study with you. So we continue on page 586, actually 587, and I ask you to please rise.
Let us adore the ever-living God and render praise unto you, who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Vanachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamnakim v'kadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
We continue on page 597, and we read responsively. Remember our people who suffered and died so that we could be free and secure. May their memory be more than a distant shadow.
For their dreams left fulfilled, their lives taken too soon.
Remember our brothers and sisters whose sacrifice kept the dream of democracy and justice alive. May their courage be our inspiration and strength.
For life cut short and the vision of your lives we remember.
Remember the falling of our armed services, the victims of terror and tragedy. May the darkness of their loss not obscure the light of peace. They were in love with our land and in love with life. We remember. Our thoughts turn to those who departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss and life and death. Tonight we are remembering Michael Aho, Arlene Batsar, Anna Cohen, Yetta Drath, Harry Gale, Jerry Hugel, Sigmund Kassweiner, Harry Kessler, Jeffrey Corman, Ima Ruth Lester, Lois Levin, David Metz, Sophie Milchman, Harold Newman, Jane T. Alshan, Osborne Patton, Rose Prezand, Leonard S. Schneider, Rose Spellman, Frank Wyman. Is there anyone else in the congregation observing yard site this week who would like to say an additional name? To their names, we add the names of those in a period of Shloshim: Judy Martin, Barbara Rosoff, Samuel Ozier Kesselman, Marilyn Feldman. Zichrona Livracha, may their lives be for blessing. Together we join on page 598. Yitzgadal v'yitzgadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach leolam ulmei almaya, Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'itpa'ar v'itromam v'itnaseh, v'itadar v'itale v'italal shmei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'ramav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen.
Osei shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen.
Please be seated. We invite our president, Wayne Haller, to share some announcements with us.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
On behalf of Monmouth Reformed Temple, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us tonight, both in our sanctuary and via live stream. We have some announcements for the evening. More information on each can be found in your weekly e-blast. Virtual Torah studies tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Google Meet. Save the date this coming Thursday, April 27th, for our annual congregation meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom. It is important that we have a quorum, so please plan to attend. Our next visual worship service will be next Friday, April 28th at 7 p.m. Join the Adult Education Committee on Saturday, April 29th at 1 p.m. to welcome Rabbi Barbara Simons for our annual Shabbat Kala. The program will be broken into 2 sessions with a half-hour break in between. RSVP by April 22nd. Come celebrate Israel's 75th anniversary this May at MRT. Interesting programs throughout the first week will culminate on a special Friday, first Friday Shabbat with musician Noah Solomon Chase. There will be Israeli music, food, wine, so bring your friends too. Services start at 6 with dinner at 7. Our annual Mitzvah Day, and for those of you who are here on the social action, you know all about this one, is May the 7th. It's a combination of events taking place at the temple and at other off-site locations, both indoors and out. In addition, there are projects that can be done at home. There's something for everyone, including donating to community organizations. More information, a link to sign up can be found in the weekly e-blast, and it's a really important thing. They do a lot of good work on Mitzvah Day. Unfortunately, this year I have to work that day, so I can't be there. But I know in past years I've worked in the garden, I've worked cleaning up pathways at the shore, and done a lot of that stuff. It's something that just about everybody can do something on. For the month of April, our Tzedakah collection is supporting Clean Ocean Action, a leading national and regional voice working to protect waterways. Their successful campaigns include improving programs and laws that protect public health at swimming beaches, reduce plastics and litter that pollute waterways, spoil beautiful beaches, and harm or kill marine life, protecting the coasts from oil and gas drilling in the ocean, and reducing toxins in our waterways to ensure fish and shellfish, which we're not supposed to be eating, are free of pollution and safe to eat. Ellen and Jay Goldberg are matching our donations. There are members of our MRT community that are very sensitive to scents and fragrances. We strive for a scent-free environment in our building. We ask that you avoid wearing scents of any kind when coming to our synagogue, and we ask that you please inform your guests who visit with us as well. Thank you for being our partner in creating a scent-free environment. While we all wish COVID was over in a distant memory, the reality is it's still very real. So we respectfully remind you to stay vigilant and remain considerate. Please make sure as much as possible that you are healthy and symptom-free. Our synagogue continues to engage together in meaningful ways. We would love for more people to invest in our mission of helping others and connecting as a Jewish community. We welcome your investment of time as well as donations to help us to continue to grow. For information on joining our MRT family or making a donation, please contact Jordana Steinberg in our office or visit our website, www.monmouthreformtemple.org. And Cantor is available as always as well. Thank you.
Thank you. There's so much going on at our temple in the next 4 weeks, and a lot of it's really wonderful, we send out a lot of communication about it. There are people in our congregation who say, oh, I had no idea, and that's okay, but we do attempt to inform you. So if you read some of our emails and put stuff on your calendar as soon as you read it, I'm sure that you'll enjoy coming. So next Friday will not be live streamed because it's our visual worship service, and guest artist Danny Kahn will come help me lead the service and do a beautiful job. We love having Danny. But when we have First Friday with our other guest artists, with Israeli music and Israeli food, we really think it'll be a very fun service as well. And so looking forward to recognizing that Israel is having a very significant milestone in its history, I thought we would close with Hatikva on page 678, also because Hatikva literally means the hope. And I think that's really what social action is about. A lot of what people do in terms of social action, you don't always reap the benefits right away when you do something. There's a very famous story in our tradition about Honi, and Honi planted a carob tree, and someone said to him, well, you're not going to be able to have the fruit for 70 years. I don't know if that's true, but that's the story. And Honi said, but my grandchildren will have that fruit. And that's what we have to think about, doing things for people who come after us. So we sing together Hatikva, page 678.
Kol od b'nevav penima, nefesh Yehudi amiha, ulfa'atei mizrach kanima, ayin letzion Sophia, Adad Atikvateinu, Atikva b'shnot apayim, lihiot amcha אותם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
And before we conclude, thank God, Passover came and went. And so we have challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. So we'll bring this to the oneg, which is in the social hall next door, and I hope we'll all join together for a little bite to eat. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.